One of the points which I've noticed about architecture when I sit in seminars, and I've sat in quite a few of them over the last 45 years since I joined architecture course in 1979. So I start my journey from that point onwards. Is that when somebody walks on the stage and is explaining a project, most of the explanations I've seen are what I call as explanation in reverse. So there is a project over there which he's probably won an award or she has won an award or something notable about it, and then you walk backwards from that. Uh, but it never really reaches a point where I'm convinced that this person, this architect, considered several different alternatives and then chose that one which finally became that pretty building over there. If you reflect on this, I always wondered why. Why is it that people explain that one project? Because if that's what you're doing, it's like saying that it's almost like saying that, see, it is predestined to become a notable project. Now, this may sound a little unfair. I'm sure many architects have considered many different things and then chose the one which they got an award for. But even then, it is unfortunate that in the audience, at least I am probably a very harsh critic, and I'm not really sure what do I take from that lecture. What do I gain from that? It's somewhat like telling that my child has grown to be a wonderful person. Of course, it's the child is my child. Okay, what people probably would want to know, young parents, for example, is what did you do? How did that child grow up to be what she is or he is? And that's more interesting, isn't it? When you reflect on this, what I notice is that many other fields which needs to deliver a very useful result, a very valuable result, they don't seem to work the way many architects do. Take medicine, for example. I have some, you can say, some second-hand experience of actually watching and learning from a few doctors on what they really do. So they use a technique which is known as differential diagnosis, and I'll kind of briefly tell you what it is. So when you go to a doctor, the doctor, quite a lot of times you may have realized, so they have pretty bland expression on their face and they're just listening to you. And then you're narrating all your woes and your things which you're feeling. So the doctor is continuously absorbing in that those few minutes the signs and symptoms of which are coming into his or her consciousness. And what they do is that they actually put up a kind of a chart in front of their mind, set of tables, okay, say vertical tables. And as the information keeps coming in, they will say, okay, it could be this disease or this disease. They're trying to diagnose what is going wrong with that patient. And based on the facts which they find and the symptoms have got little less weightage because that's what the patient is reporting, and that may not be always right. And what they do is that they start eliminating based on these facts. So they do a differential diagnosis. So they say it can't be this disease, it can't be this disease. So that's all going on in the back of the mind. And the more experienced that doctor is, more items are there on that table, and then they kind of sort it out and say, okay, possibly it is this, and furthermore they ask for some more tests and all that, and then uh, the diagnosis is made. Architects don't work like that, many of them. Many of the people I know, many of my friends, colleagues, in fact, sometimes even teachers will tell, chase one particular concept to the end. And I wonder why. I mean, what is the necessity to just chase one concept? Is there anything which is magical in your thinking, which kind of tells you beforehand itself that this is going to be a notable project, this particular approach? I don't think so. I don't know why somebody would say before the project is really executed and put to use, and maybe if even a few years, only then you come to know how that project has really performed. But there is a tendency for people to kind of zero in into a concept and then chase it. In fact, there are people who get excited with the particular approach they're taking and they just won't consider anything else. And they do it pretty soon, they do it very fast. Literally, in the early stages of the design itself, the design is sorted out and you're chasing only one thing. There are a few architects, they do make alternatives. Probably I'm one of them. And not that I became a very notable architect because of that. Charles Correa once very famously said that people misunderstand between design and construction. People ascribe uh, good quality construction to be equivalent to be a good design, and that is pretty tragic actually. And I agree with him. Do we consider multiple alternatives? Usually, no. In our education system, we are often asked to chase one particular alternative and then work out some explanations around it. It's not the way many fields, like a music composer, whatever little I know about music composition, I play a little bit of guitar and drums and all that, is that you don't really zero in and say, this is exactly what I want. There are some stories of that nature, but that happens because that person actually had a lot of other compositions in that person's head, and that narrowed down to that one composition. And that part nobody talks about much. Anyway, even if you look at evolution, evolution is not something which will say, okay, I'm going to make this animal in this version grow. No, there is a sieve which is kind of, we are all shaken about by nature, the sieve of evolution. And things which didn't work out fall through the sieve, and only the one which can survive, the survival of the fittest, that is considered for the next layer of the evolution. So even nature actually considers many alternatives, and then you find that this particular animal had that particular, its ancestor had that particular feature or that particular limb or whatever, and that kind of fell into disuse, and then it went away, and that's how it works. Nobody really knows beforehand that that's what's going to survive, and that is that notable design which will win that award, or that is that diagnosis. I'm sure it is that diagnosis. A doctor will not say that. A doctor will not say that my favorite subject in medicine is cancer. I mean, imagine saying that a patient comes in front of the doctor and the doctor says, my favorite subject is cancer. I hope this is cancer. I hope this is cancer. That's not how good medical practice works. They have to be absolutely blank about whatever which that patient is suffering. That patient suffers from that. That patient doesn't suffer because you are fond of a particular disease and you would wish that particular disease comes in front of you. So everywhere there is a consideration of multiple alternatives, and then select from that the one which could be taken ahead. When I started my practice, this kind of bothered me quite a lot because I had just left Hafiz contractor and I was thinking about all this. And there's a lot to be told about my experiences with Hafiz. It was a wonderful experience. But at the same time, it got me to think about what exactly am I designing? What will I be designing? How do I know beforehand that that's the design which I need to do? And that was one of the main motivation for writing my own design software, because I can consider multiple alternatives and then debate and discuss. In our office there was a lot of discussions about various different approaches which we can take for a particular project. I remember many of the projects we were doing In some cases, we have even done 20 alternatives for a particular design. And then you choose the best fitting design in that given circumstances and take that ahead. And again, let me remind you that didn't make me a notable architect or anything. I'm not particularly keen on telling that I have done this great stuff or that great stuff. It's pointless, especially when discussing with fellow architects. So, so the idea is that you need to really consider multiple alternatives and then choose from that. And that is one of the reason why we should have a system set up so that you can actually select the best fitting explanation, the best possible alternative which can be taken up ahead. There's a name for it, this process. It's called abductive reasoning. It falls under the category of pragmatism, where you say that, okay, let me consider pretty neutrally very different approaches for the same project, then really have a good debate about this. Some good offices, I believe, they actually work out multiple alternatives and they conduct a jury. And those alternatives are made by different teams working individually, separately, and then at the end of it they get together. These teams are not supposed to talk to each other also, and then there is a jury which is conducted to select which is the one which is the best possible explanation. That's called abductive reasoning. So nature does abductive reasoning in evolution, doctors do abductive reasoning, and architects also really need to do abductive reasoning and then chase that one which has hopefully has the best possible explanation. Now, the thing is, even after doing that, as the way Charles Correa said, if you see the designs which he made in Bangalore for, I think, LIC housing, if I'm not mistaken, it's not a pretty well constructed set of residences. It's like kind of row houses and duplexes above the row house and all that. And there are this staircases, but it's a pretty interesting design. And I think the people over there are very comfortable with what was designed, though it's not really well constructed, frankly. So that's how architecture really, I think, needs to be practiced and designed. Unfortunately, our theories and our systems are not really conducive to it. We are so form oriented, we dance around with forms, we do not know how to really criticize those forms, find out the things which really matter for the people who are going to use that or getting affected by that project. We dance around with push pull and things like that, and we assume that just because it looks nice, that's a nice design, which is pretty tragic actually. So I hope this small tips and tricks which I give will be useful for especially young architects, and you can shape your career and your design process accordingly. Thank you very much.